Thank you, President Donna, and good afternoon, everyone. Today's speaker was selected with Rabbi Swarsensky and Dr. Chandra in mind, and how could we further contribute to Rabbi Swarsensky's memory. Both the rabbi and Dr. Chandra immigrated to the United States. Both of them have contributed greatly to our community and beyond. Our speaker today is Shiva Bidar-Sielaff. How'd I do, Carmen? Bidar-Sielaff. Thank you. Who, against the background of her own experiences, will explore the joys and the sorrows of being an immigrant in the United States and their drive to give back to their new country. Shiva is the Chief Diversity Officer at UW Health. She has over 20 years of experience as a diversity professional. And at the national level, Shiva has worked extensively on issues of equal access to healthcare for limited English proficient individuals. And she's been instrumental in the development of language access, the process, and the procedures in Dane County. Shiva was elected as a City of Madison Alder in April of 2009. And she has served as a Common Council President Pro Tem as well as President. So please help me in giving a warm welcome to Shiva Bidar-Sielaff.
It's great to have your family here because they're cheering you on. Doesn't matter what I'm going to say, they're still going to say I'm great. So that gives me peace of mind. So thank you so much. Thank you, President Hurd, and thank you, esteemed Rotarians and guests. Congratulations, Dr. Chandra. It is truly humbling to stand before you on a date where we are honoring the legacy of Rabbi Swarsensky and Dr. Chandra's inspiring work. Rabbi Swarsensky, Dr. Chandra, and I share something in common. We are first-generation immigrants to the United States. I hope you will indulge me today in taking you through my immigrant journey. So it started in Tehran, Iran. Born to a middle-class family, living in a predominantly Jewish neighborhood with parents who were non-practicing Muslims. At that age, everything seemed wonderful, and life seemed to have a course that it was going to take, with me following my amazing grandmothers. My story would indeed not be complete if I didn't tell you about the strong woman in my life. Let's start with my two grandmothers and my mother. My paternal grandmother, who you will see there with the hijab, came from a small village. She did not know how to read and write, but she sure knew the importance of always living with compassion and love. My maternal grandmother was one of the first women to go to the university in Iran. You can see her above, right there in the middle of those men, saying, "We shall do this." Sticking with her sister girlfriends, which is what I've done in life. She was the original feminist. She made sure I knew that as a woman, I could do and be anything I wanted to. As a side note, let me also tell you that my grandmother, maternal grandmother, decided in the late 60s to go down the Amazon by herself, and she did it. So when I tell you she was the original feminist, I really mean it. Some other pictures there, maybe you recognize me. The little girl with my parents, and my older brother. And up there are my paternal grandparents and their family when they moved to Tehran from that little village. So this was my world. These are my roots. Nobody could have predicted then how quickly my life was going to change. The Iranian Revolution started, demonstrations, tear gas, people being shot as we were walking home from school, school closed. My parents would close their bedroom doors and whisper about what was going on and what to do. There is nothing harder for a parent than making the decision to leave their place of birth. They made that decision because they wanted their children to be safe. It is the story of immigrants the world over. With a few suitcases, we left Iran to Spain. My father stayed behind because it was not supposed to be for long. Indeed, the first-generation immigrant heart always keeps this glimmer of hope that one day we will go back to where we came from. Many songs have been written about this. And now, in Valencia, Spain, my mother suddenly became the sole parent of 3 young children in a new country. She had to learn the culture and the language. We did not see my father for 4 years. He was not allowed to leave Iran. For years, our evenings as a family were a constant changing of TV and radio stations to listen to the latest news about the Iran-Iraq war, Tehran under bombing, aunts and uncles and cousins fleeing to the countryside. I spent my formative years in Spain. I learned to use my voice because a quiet little girl from Iran was not going to survive the bullying in a school in Spain unless she had a voice. So I made sure to have that voice, and I think I've made good use of it after that. So because we don't have all day, I'm going to fast forward to the next step in my journey. I was granted a scholarship to come to the US for grad school. In January 1991, I landed in the US. I can be boxed in the narrative of the successful immigrant created by Hollywood and the media, the American dream and the land of opportunity. I love this country, of which I'm now a citizen. My love for this country also means that I want to be sure to not perpetuate a narrative that makes everybody feel comfortable. The complexities of the immigrant experience are often dismissed and overlooked. The struggles of the first generation are real. We are forever caught between 2 worlds, for me 3. We are orphans, we left our roots, we experience loss, the mourning and the grief is never over with. It's like asking a child who became an orphan at a young age to forget that they are different from the rest, that they are not an orphan. We have to start over in a new country. We have to create our own path. This is the land of opportunity because we make it the land of opportunity. Doors just don't open. We knock hard to open them, breaking through barriers with perseverance and resilience. Other words used frequently is assimilation and melting pot. We're supposed to just blend in. That is a very Eurocentric concept. It prioritizes one culture over others, white over brown and black. It is my strong belief that we should instead value the fact that immigration is about integrating one's life experience into the fabric of this country, because it is through diverse lenses and experiences that we can continue to make this country better and stronger. One of the most important experiences first-generation immigrants bring to this new country of ours is that we have seen what loss looks like. Losing your community, losing your family. We have seen what evil and the worst side of human beings look like. We have chosen goodness over evil. Our lives are shaped by that loss. Our destiny is to be here, to turn our loss into our strength, and to create family and community right here in Madison. As a preschool teacher, as a county social services specialist, as the First Dane County Immigrant Affairs Specialist, as a doctor, as a healthcare administrator, as the founder of the Latinx LGBT Youth Organization, as the executive director of Centro Hispano, as the City Council Chief of Staff, and as importantly, as the people who made your food today, who get up every day with that lingering sadness of not knowing if they will ever see their loved ones they left behind again, and go to work because their children's future matter more than they do. Each of us has a story and a journey that has brought us here. Some of us have been the lucky ones. We have been able to find a path to citizenship. Here is another myth that I would like to dispel. The good immigrant, the documented immigrant, versus the bad immigrant, the undocumented one. Given the broken immigration system, your immigration status is truly a matter of luck. What country you came from, when did you arrive here, who did you fall in love with, what did you decide to study, were you able to have a great immigration lawyer? All of those things are what makes us different between documented and undocumented. In the meantime, our undocumented immigrants and their children, our dreamers and their parents, are systematically and purposefully kept out of the American dream. The American dream shouldn't consist of being scared every second of the day. In reading about Rabbi Swarsensky, one quote from him was repeated frequently: building bridges, not walls. How timely. In 2018, some are still talking about building walls. As of yesterday, they were still talking about it in California. So you can see in the images here, the family and the community right here in Madison that I have been able to build. They go from my sister girlfriends, to community leaders who are also my family. Once you have lost your community, you know you don't want that to happen again. It shapes you, and you're driven to honor the sacrifices made by giving back. People constantly ask me, why do you do so much? I'm joining my commitment to give back to our community by my new family and community. And we give back because we know this is our country, this is our community, and we do not want to lose again. Many people in the room today are part of these pictures. I'm sorry I couldn't put everybody in the pictures. I did go through a very difficult time making the selection, but again, we would be here all day, and I was told 20 minutes tops, Shiva. So they include my Latinx family, community leaders, UW Health and City Council colleagues who are also part of my American family. And last but not least, let me go back to the full circle. My parents and brothers, although they live far away, they're my cheerleaders. My dad actually just called me, although I had told him not to call me in the middle of the presentation. And then he proceeded to send me messages. But here we are, spending this last Christmas in Istanbul, as they could not all come here to see me because of the Muslim ban. I hope my journey has given you a little glimpse into the complexities of first-generation immigrants like myself. Let me end before I get to questions, because I promise we could have a great debate and lots of questions, because I know you all are very good at asking tough questions. But let me end with hope by wishing you all Happy Nowruz, or Iranian New Year. Nowruz means new day. It is a 3,000-year-old celebration. It is the new day that starts the year on the exact astronomical beginning of the spring. So that will be next Tuesday, about noon. I'll be ready for that. Nowruz is about renewal and rebirth. May this Nowruz bring a renewed commitment from all of us to good words, good thoughts, and good deeds, which is really not much different from your 4-way test. So with that, I would like to open it up to comments and questions that you may have about my experience and the lens through which I see our contributions as first-generation immigrants to this country. You don't count, because I knew you were going to cheer me anyways. Stu, I knew you were going to raise your hand and ask a question.
You referred a moment ago to your Latinx community. Were you old enough before you left Iran to have fully incorporated an understanding of Iranian culture? And during the time that you lived in Spain, were you able to hold on to that culture, or did you acculturate into the Spanish identity?
So I was certainly old enough to remember my culture and to remember, my grandparents and things that we used to do. But I was also young enough to be able to really acculturate pretty quickly into my new country of Spain. Very different than my mother's experience, who really had a difficult time finding a way to acculturate to Spain. So I feel like I did. I wouldn't say that I ever blended in, but I did a very good job at being able to understand the culture and being able to make sure that I could walk through life as a young person and as a teenager, which is already difficult enough regardless of whether you're an immigrant or not, without being ostracized. And so I spent, I think, like many immigrants, a good portion of my life trying to not think about my culture and of my land of birth, because it was easier. And I think later in life, I have made full circle with the richness of all of those different experiences. So I would say I did spend quite a bit of time telling my mom that she should certainly not cook Iranian food and send it to school with me, because that's why I was being bullied. And when she would send it, I would make sure that I would hide it somewhere so nobody could see it. I now regret not having eaten all those lunches because I don't have time to make lunch for myself. So, but I think that I did spend a lot of time during those formative years learning and adapting to a new culture and maybe denying some of my cultural heritage.
What will it take for Madison as a city and the University of Wisconsin to become sanctuary cities or sanctuary universities?
Thank you, great question. So the term sanctuary is used very often, and certainly has been also in the news lately because of the lawsuit against the state of California. And it's a term that's very loosely defined as far as what it is, right? So it really means that it is a city, in this case, or a university that has values that really embrace immigrants, regardless of their immigration status, and protects them. So I feel that at the City of Madison, I've been lucky enough that I've been joined by all of my colleagues unanimously to pass resolutions that really talk about us protecting immigrants and making sure that we're offering policies that would not endanger our immigrant community, undocumented immigrant community. So I feel that in that sense, we can be called a sanctuary city, and I actually call us a sanctuary city. I think beyond that, I don't want to forget that the university needs to do that work too. The university certainly has different issues because of the state and the fact that the Board of Regents really is in charge of the policies at the university. So what will it take? It would take a different Board of Regents, not entirely, right? But it would take a different look at how these things are. And there's really great people on the board, and then there is other people who probably are not very supportive of thinking about the university as a sanctuary university. And even forget the word sanctuary, we still are not offering in-state tuition to our undocumented immigrant children who have grown up here. So those are the practical things, right? Because we can be checking, and that's why I was talking, we can talk about the terms, but what are we doing in practice that really makes a difference? And so the one thing that we need to fight for in this state is to make sure that all our dreamers get to at least have in-state tuition, and beyond that, get to actually have access to scholarships and to ways to contribute to this community. And last, I don't want to forget to say that the Sanctuary Movement is also a faith-based movement, because we are here today honoring Rabbi Swarsensky, and he understood what it means to build bridges across faith, and he understood also what role faith communities can play at times of persecution. And this is a time of persecution, and I know this may sound really like I'm exaggerating, but it is. It feels like a time of persecution. To many of us, it seems like a time of persecution to those who I consider family. And so the faith-based community here in Madison and Dane County has really stepped up, and they have created a new sanctuary movement. So thank you for those of you who participate in that.
I'm curious about your experience as being a woman coming from the Middle East to Spain and then the U.S., just understanding kind of what the challenges and opportunities were amongst those three cultures.
Thank you for that question. So, you know, the one thing that I would say is that I am, I think, a good example of breaking the stereotypes there is about Middle Eastern women and who we are and what we stand for. And whether we wear the hijab, whether we don't wear it, I can tell you that I have never met a Middle Eastern woman who is not an outspoken, strong woman, nor have I met a Latina who's not outspoken and strong. So I take from both. So I feel that actually our cultures have allowed us to really feel like we hold the family, and whether, again, it's your literal family or your family and community, we are the ones that hold it together. We are the bond, and it's given me that strength. And it is true, literally, the sisterhood of my family who's here today, and many of them that I see here, from different backgrounds, different races, and different religions, that we are able to create change in this community. So I feel that as soon as the issue comes up about how we're treated differently as women, I often feel actually that it is the larger community that treats us differently, and within our communities, we see our strength, and we know that we are really the holders of a lot of work in our community. We always are joking, in certainly, you know, in all communities, but in the Latina communities, like Juan Jose will recognize that, and Oscar will too, that we're kind of the power behind. We are, you know, we are the engine that makes it all run, and we're proud of it. So I think it, if anything, it's given me strength.
Thank you for being here today, Shiva.
Thanks for inviting me.
On a couple different occasions, I've witnessed you open up a cultural competency skills workshop, speaking Farsi, Spanish, and French. And for those people here in the room today who, particularly those white individuals like myself from Western Europe roots, Western European roots, perhaps you could share a little bit about the notion of cultural competency skills and what we can do to better appreciate those who come from different cultural and ethnic backgrounds on our own.
Well, so you're asking me to do my entire cultural competency training in 2 minutes. So I'll be no. So you know, one important thing is you talk about speaking languages, and again, I happen to speak several languages. But the skill that gives you is the ability to actually listen to people, and to really actually listen to what people are saying, and to analyze what they're saying, and try to think in your mind, if I were to say it in the other language, how would I say what they said? And my big advice would be practice that. That would be being really culturally competent, because what often happens is we're actually not listening. We already have a narrative in our mind, and we are continuing to go down that road, and we're trying to fit the person that's speaking into that narrative, as opposed to listening to how their narrative is actually trying to destroy the existing narrative. So do that, I think, listening, as if somebody was speaking a foreign language, and thinking to yourself, if I was going to repeat what they said, exactly like they said it, what would I be saying? So that would be, in 2 minutes, that would be my advice, but we could make it longer for a whole training if you are interested.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you. There, sorry.
You had mentioned that you had been raised in a non-practicing Muslim household. Certainly, religious values transcend individual religious practices. And I wondered if you could share with us some of the religious values either that have driven you or the commonality, because you've been exposed to so many different religions and cultures. What are some of the common religious values that we need to be aware of, as you say, talk about matters of sanctuary, talk about matters of diversity, matters of being together in a diverse community?
So thank you. And I think we Iranians are very well placed to talk about the transcendence of the values of different religions. Not only we as Middle Easterns are home to all the big religions, but we're also the land of Zoroastrians. We're also the birthplace of Baha'is. So we really as a country represent that ability to really understand that there are a lot of common values that we share across religions and across faith. So I would go back, for me, in the values that are the basic values, in the things that I ended with, which is good words, good deeds, and good thoughts. And give back, because giving is receiving. And I think that if you think about the fact that giving is receiving, I can't think about any faith that would not think that that is something that we should support. So those are kind of my guiding values and things that were taught to me by my practicing Muslim paternal grandmother.
Hi, thank you so much for coming here today. My question kind of harkens back to two things you said. One is sanctuary city and the other is persecution. And one of the things that is truly distressing to think about is that knock on the door, you know, kind of reminiscent of the Gestapo or something like that. What is the reality of what's going on with immigration and immigrants here right now in our community and that knock on the door?
So the reality is that there is a big fear of that knock on the door, and that knock on the door is not very far from reality, that there has been a huge increase in immigration enforcement. We have not seen any raids in our community, but the reality also is that that's another narrative that happens, right? People think about raids, and really what we see on the ground is that immigration enforcement will come and quietly, not only like like in the movies, like 10 cars show up and they go somewhere, but they come quietly and they go knock on doors because supposedly they're looking for one person, and then, if they come in contact with anybody else, they'll take them away. I'll just tell you a quick story from a couple of weeks ago. This is why I left a lot of time for questions, because I can talk a lot when questions are asked. But we had a situation in which a mother dropped her child at school. She then had a car accident, and police was called. And unfortunately, she had a warrant for her, a federal warrant, because she had previously had come in contact with immigration enforcement and had been asked to leave the country, and she hadn't. So that was her crime for which she had the warrant, right? But because she had a warrant, the police department felt that their hands were tied and that they could not actually let this person go. So she was actually immediately picked up by ICE agents and taken to Milwaukee, and a child in school. So that's a reality that is happening in our community, and we are really fortunate in this community that we have an organized group of people who are ready and responding to these situations. We have a great group of immigration lawyers who are ready to represent in these cases. When I was telling you, it's just not by luck that people it's by luck that people get good immigration lawyer. Having a good immigration lawyer increases your chances of not actually getting deported exponentially. So again, we're doing all that work. But the reality is there, we have many parents who do not want to travel together because they want to make sure that one of them is home or is with the children if the other one gets picked up. So those are the true realities of people in this community on a daily basis.
Thank you, Shiva.
Thank you.
Very nice presentation. It seems that you display a part of my life story too. It's the story of all immigrants. The question for you is that you have gone one extra step than I have gone through. So I came directly to United States a few years before revolution, but I suffered through the whole thing as you were mentioning. It was like a cinema or a movie was coming every step of my life in front of me and what I suffered in this country before I was accepted. Now, I want to ask you a question like this. What happened to you in Spain and here? And what's the difference between your experience and why made you to stay here rather than stay in Spain? Because in Spain, you could just get lost in the crowd. You look more Spanish than Irish to me, or you know what I mean? It's easier to assimilate from look.
And I don't have an accent in Spanish.
Yeah, that's true. So that's
definitely can assimilate.
What is the difference?
Well, a few things. I mean, I think that there was a lot of things in your life that kind of just, again, you follow the path, right? So I finished and I got a job that I just loved, and so I decided to stay and work, and then found another job that I really liked, found a family here that was very supportive, and decided to stay. So I think that I could have gone back to Spain. Certainly, you know, the weather is nicer in Valencia. But I think I also found that I could make a difference here, and I was making a difference, and that was very fulfilling to me, and I stayed. That doesn't mean that that couldn't have happened in Spain. I don't know that story because that story didn't unfold, right? This story unfolded. So I would say it wasn't out of like, okay, I'm coming and I'm never going back to Spain because something had happened in Spain. Not at all. I go back to Spain every year whenever I can still, but this story unfolded, and it's been a great journey for me.
Shiva,
Kaleem.
how you doing?
Good, Kaleem.
So I love this lady, but
Thank you.
I don't have a question, but I just wanted to take the opportunity when I just heard you say that you haven't had the opportunity to have your family come here. I feel your pain, not knowing both of my parents, what that must feel like. But I just want to thank you for the role you've played as a leader in our community, because this lady has helped thousands of people here in the time that she's been here. So whatever experience you've endured, whatever has fueled your fire, I'm just thankful that you're here with us and that you continue to stay with us because of all that you've done and continue to do for our community. So thank you.
Thank you, Kaleem. I promised I was not going to cry, so I'm going to hold it. Thank you, Kaleem. That means a lot. And right back at you about helping thousands of people in this community.
Hey, Shiva. So I really appreciate you focusing us on this idea of good thoughts and good deeds and good works. Or what was the three? Good words. There you go. Thank you. In addition to putting that in practice, I think you have a captive audience of folks who are really interested in being in opposition to the oppression that is existing right now, specifically against the immigrant community. Do you have any suggested steps that folks could take, whether it's organizations that we could be partnering with or contributing to, or things like that, as it relates to ensuring that ICE isn't coming after us, or whatever the case may be? I just wanted to give you that sort of platform to tell us how to get to work.
So few things of how to get to work. One, yes, there are organizations that you should be supporting and giving to, and we have one organization, Centro Hispano of Dane County, that is our go-to organization that really holds our community together, that is our place and our safe place. So talk to Karen. She's sitting there. Wave your hand. Don't be shy. So that's one. The other thing is be present and be with us, because oftentimes what we see is that when we are in this kind of setting, and I have the pulpit right now and I can speak, and we feel that people are supportive and they're like, yes, we agree with you. But when we have to testify at the state assembly so that we can get driver's licenses, when we have to go in front of the Board of Regents to say, hey, these dreamers deserve in-state tuition, when we need people to write letters, it's us. And of course they expect from us that that's what we're going to say, right? So it's easy to dismiss our voices, although we are loud and we're not going anywhere, just like the kids right now out there, I'm sure. So it's easy. So we need allies to do this work with us. And this is a group of very influential community leaders. You could be the person that can make a difference in the way that these issues of driver's licenses, of access to in-state tuition are seen and received by people that have positions of power. And then last but not least, everybody better vote. But I'm assuming that for those of you who are members of the Rotary, if you're doing your four-way test, there is no way you should not be voting. But vote locally and statewide and nationally. Oftentimes we see the focus on like national, and then everybody's like throwing their hands in the air and going, how can we change that? There are April 3rd, local elections. Get out and vote, because little by little, we are the people on the ground that will make a difference here in Dane County. And also remember that oftentimes the people that become the next generation of leaders for those other offices started in local office. So support them. I think you had a question. Oh, we're done. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shiva. Build bridges, not walls. We are adjourned.